And we are live.
Hi everyone. My name is Alice Coffin. I am member of the team of the Europe Central Asian lesbian community, and we are very happy to host tonight great lesbian genius talk on top lesbian athletes, and we have there about sports and lesbians two great speaker, Marianne Meier and Jeannine who just published a major book on this topic. And you could see we announced the session. There was a lot of excitement, and some people commented how much this book was really a turnover. A turning point on the topic of lesbians in professional sport and top lesbian athletes. So we feel very honored to have them. And there are 5 co-authors of the book. They will tell you everything about it. It's in German, so I let them explain everything. But there are 5 of them, and we want to thank all those authors for publishing, and especially Corinne Rufli for helping us to get in contact with one another. So I will very soon leave the floor to Jeannine and Marianne. I just want to tell you a few words about ERC. So we are a network of lesbian activists in Europe and Central Asia. You can find everything related to her story and our activities on our website, European Lesbian Conference. And also, I wanted to tell you a few words about what we've been doing to face the terrible epidemic the world is facing right now, and hoping you are all as good as can be. We have actually launched those sessions, this Facebook Live and other sessions, which we call Lockdown Lesbian Listening, to make sure our lesbian community to hold together, share some information that they would not find in the mainstream media. And we have also been doing many thematic topics, like on lesbian parenting or media activism. You can find all those either on this Facebook page, or also you can find them again on our webpage. Like this session will also be broadcast there, and also on our YouTube channel. And just before I leave the floor, I want to say a last important word about COVID-19. We know it's very difficult out there for so many of you. We know a lot of lesbian groups are really struggling, but also giving everything they have to help the community. And ELC wanted to make sure we do our best to help you. So we are providing some grants from 500 to 3,000 euros to lesbian groups from Europe and Central Asia. Please do apply for those grants. We made it as simple as possible for the application, so as not to lose your time that we know is already very time consuming with your activism. So it's all on our website, all on this Facebook page, and please ask us questions if you need them. Now it's time to hear Marianne and Jeannine, and thanks again so much for being there and talking to us about top lesbian athletes. I will leave the floor completely to them, and I know they have a great presentation ready and even a little quiz at the end. Thank you. And we will come back also for a session. Do not hesitate to ask your questions, either if you're on the Zoom on the chat, or if you're on Facebook, as most of you, please put them in comments and we will tell them to our speakers.
Thank you very much. So thanks for having us. It's an honor to speak here to this network, and thanks Alice and also Sylvia, who does the technical aspects. I'm gonna put it on my presentation now. Let's see, and let me know if this works out. Okay, is this okay? Can you see it, Alice? Yeah, thank you.
Totally.
Okay, good. So yeah, I think let's see if now it's working. Yeah, now it's working. So our program, we're going to introduce ourselves briefly, Jeannine and myself, and then we have some parts or some aspects with the book. Why is this book needed, and why did some persons refuse to be in the book? And then there is a kind of a theoretical part, more on heteronormativity and sociocultural ideals of masculinity, femininity. There's going to be kind of a bit of a theoretical block, also in terms of trespassing norms and homophobia. And then, as this is like the title of the book, Vorbild and Vorurteil in German means like role models and prejudice. So it's also a bit on role modeling, and the quiz is going to be on prejudice then at the end. And we have 2 slots where Jeannine will come. I think I'm on mute.
Yeah.
Now it's, yeah, now it's better. I just, and yeah, and so we will give, our aim is to give a voice in the face to these great women. Here is the team. We were 5 authors to write this book, 5 co-authors. So Jeannine and myself, we are on the on this call, but there are 3 others. Maybe Jeannine, if you just want to say briefly something about yourself here.
Yes, hello everybody. I am a PE teacher originally. Now I work as a sports journalist at the national TV and radio station in Switzerland. And I am a former track athlete. That's
Thank
it.
you. I know there's much more about Jeannine, but we are a bit, we need to keep time. Maybe you can ask at the end. So I'm working currently at the University of Bern at the Interdisciplinary Center for Gender Studies. And there my main field is on sport and diversity research and role modeling. So this is my main focus. I'm originally a historian and political scientist, and then I did my PhD on sport pedagogy. So I have this kind of 2 aspects in terms of sport, but also in terms of the historic dimension. So that is our team, but we have more on the team. We also have a photographer, because like every of the 28 women on the book, Lilian Salate, our photographer, she went home, she visited them, all of them, and she took a colored picture. And in the book, every athlete is presented by one full color, full page picture. Plus we have then black and white pictures that are more historic, covering the women, how they were performing their sport some years ago. So Lilian is part of the team as well. We did a crowdfunding to do the book, and we were really, really astonished and surprised and very touched that within 48 days, we reached our goal, which was 37,000 Swiss francs. And this was just, in terms of solidarity and people supporting, we were not sure what this is going to be, because if you don't reach the sum that you announce, you will not get anything. And we managed, and this is it was a very motivating sign for us as well. We also received a research grant from the Swiss National Foundation for research, basically. And this is also, it was important for us that we get also money from the sports sectors, from associations, from sport federations, the football, the boxing federation, etc. And not only from the LGBTIQ sector. This was very important for us to make this bridge. So the second point is, why is such a book needed? Like, we are 2020, so what's the necessity for such a book? First of all, the faces and voices are missing. Like, we see the sports stars on television, but we never know that they are kind of lesbian athletes, and it's not covered. It's just, no one will talk about it. And so they are missing basically role models. And there's also the point that we would like to provide the access to these role models as a kind of a measure against homophobia. Then we also want to somehow reveal this mechanism in sport business, this power triangle between sport, media, and economy. And the bottom line in elite sport is still very patriarchal structures. So if we look at the committees in IOC, if we look at the committees of all major sport federations, it's male dominated. The female perspective is not there. And I mean, not even the female perspective and the lesbian perspective is not there either. I mean, this is kind of in addition that this is totally missing. And the point with this power triangle is that if you do not conform with this heteronormativity that is covered in the media and with the sponsors, etc., you will not get the money and you will not get the professionalism, and then you will not succeed to be as high performing as you wish. And so we have this basically triangle that is going on and on. And the aim, like the long-term impact that we want to reach, is that this public visibility is just a matter of course. That, for example, sport awards, if we have the Swiss sport awards, and if a lesbian athlete is winning this award, that she can kiss her partner, get up and go and say thank you, and very, very simple, like as it was the most normal thing in the world. Nowadays, male do that and they kiss their wives, and female do that and they kiss their partners and everything. But if there is a lesbian top athlete winning an award, she's there with her sister, or she's there with her coach. So this is something in Switzerland that we would like to have a new normalcy somehow. And I think, why is this book needed? I like the quote very much from Ladina Heimgartner. She said, books like this are needed so that books like this will not be needed in the future anymore. So that is like really our aim. That would be really great. The protagonists of this book, so we have women of all ages, we have young ones, we have older ones, we have all kinds of sports. We have 28, we have famous ones, we have women who can earn nowadays their living playing football, like Ramona Bachmann, for example, on the upper right. And we have all kinds of women. We have well-known ones and we have ones that no one will know. And we defined elite athletes playing in the highest league in their sports or being part of a national team. That's how we defined it. So we have different portraits in this book. We also have a portrait of Ramona Bachmann, as I mentioned. In Switzerland, we have in the national football team a lesbian couple. So she's open about her love with Alice Lehmann. And this is something quite astonishing. But here again, because the two as well are meeting this heteronormative aspects of, I'm going to come to that later, of femininity. Like media are really kind of, they are showing her. Alicia Lehmann has 1 million followers on Instagram. I mean, she is really, she's really kind of important. And this was quite of a breakthrough that we have this in such a visible way in Switzerland. But this is only in the last 2 years that this basically happened. Now, knowing more about the protagonists of this book, I would like to ask Jeannine to come in with the first real-life portrait out of the book. Jeannine, the microphone is not open.
Yes.
Yeah, now it's good.
Now it's open.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, thank you, Marianne. First, I would like to talk about Katerina Suitor. She's one of our protagonists in the book, and she is a former bobsledder. She is also the first female world champion Switzerland ever had. She won the gold medal in 2001. That was only the second world championship ever happened for female bobsledder. Now she is 51 years old and she lives with her girlfriend Sabina in the eastern part of Switzerland. And Sabina is also part of the book, which means she is also a bobsledder. When I talk about Katerina's story, I want to focus on her as a role model in general. I don't want to talk about what happened in her life, but I want to focus on her as a role model, not specifically for being a lesbian in her sports, but generally for women in sports. Katerina, as a lesbian, she kept her sexual orientation for herself during her entire career, even afterwards for a long, long time, even though, and this is to mention, even though she was competing together with her girlfriend, Sabine. They were both in the same bob. They did not want to live their love openly because they were afraid of the reaction of the association. They were afraid that that there are negative vibes. When Katerina started her career in the early 1990s, there was no World Cup at all for women. Their tour was called Ladies' Cup, and there were only 6 races in one season, so not that much. And those 6 races were organized by volunteers, so just people with passion. There was no money involved, not at all. And at the beginning, the female bob sledder, they did not really have a coach or anyone who told them how to sledge properly. Worse, men in the field, they mostly laughed about them and they did not take them seriously, and they said that bobsleigh was nothing for women. The gap between men and women that time, and still nowadays, to be honest, was and is huge. And I want to give you an example about this gap. A new sledge, for example, nowadays cost about $50,000. Women back then, with hardly any or no sponsors, they couldn't afford a new sledge. So what did they do? They had to use the ones men did not want to use anymore. So in reality, this means Katerina and her teammates had to fix the old sledges with duct tape. I don't know if you know what it is, but this strong silver tape. So they fixed their sledges with this tape to be able to run. And in one interview I had with Katerina, she told me, well, this duct tape, we put duct tape everywhere, on our shoes, on the zipper of the jackets, everywhere. It was the best friend we had, and we could afford it. Another example for the gender gap in bobsleigh is at the Olympics 2006 in Torino, Italy. It's not that long ago, it's 14 years ago. There were 3 Swiss teams with men. All of them were allowed to take their own mechanic, and the mechanic was paid for. The number 1 female team was not allowed to take their own mechanic. The athletes had to prepare and fix their sledge by themselves. So this is a huge gap between female and male sports. For me, to end up the story of Katerina, is that she, for me, really is a pioneer and a fighter, and not only a pioneer for lesbians, because at the end of her mechanical career, she outed herself. But Katerina, for me, is a pioneer because she went through so much only because she was a woman and she wanted to do what men do. That's Katerina Suitor.
Thank you very much, Jeannine. So Sabina, by the way, is also in our book. She has a portrait on her own, and then you can see basically the linkages, how these stories somehow relate. So here we're gonna go on with the reasons for the refusals. So we asked some women to be on the book, and we could have, we could have had so many more women, more than 28, but we wanted to have as many sports as possible and as many how to say, generations as possible, kind of a variety of ages. That's why we also had refusals when we went directly to people to say, oh, we don't have this sport, let's go and find someone. And here are the main kind of all the refusals, people who said, oh no, I don't want to be on this book. I somehow put it in 4 categories. The first category, these were mainly people, mainly women, mainly elderly or older women who said, I'm with with my partner since 25 years. We live together. We go together to family gatherings, but no one really knows. We never said it explicitly. So the slogan is basically don't ask, don't tell. Everyone knows, no one speaks it out. And like this, it's like, it's not real, but it is real. And she said, if I'm now in a book with a picture, everyone will know officially that I am a lesbian and this is not possible for me. So a quite impressive reason as well that they could not participate. Then the second category are basically women who said a book where you enumerating lesbians in sport, this is kind of this is going to damage women's sport, because the prejudice that all top athletes and top sport people are lesbians, it's going to be even stronger, the prejudice. And these were also women, they for a long time in their life as coaches, they tried to convince parents to let the girls and the daughters join sports clubs, and they tried to convince them that they will not get affected by becoming a lesbians, etc., that it's not contagious. Things like this, they had to fight for this their whole life, were never open about themselves because they wanted to promote the sport. They wanted to enable these girls to be active. And so they said, no, I don't want to damage women's sport, which was quite a strong argument as well. Then the third point, it should not be possible anymore in the year 2020, but it is. We had refusals from active young sportswomen who said, I'm going to lose my sponsorship. Or maybe the sponsor will not be there next year. We'll say, well, sorry, it's not possible anymore. For safety reason for these athletes, we cannot even name the sports because Switzerland is so small. When you say which sports, then you know exactly basically who it is. And it's quite a tough one. And it's also the proof why such a book is needed. And the last reason basically are the athletes who said, I don't want to be reduced to a lesbian. I want recognition for me as an athlete. I want to be recognized for my performance on the pitch, on the field, on the slope, wherever, but not just to get the lesbian label, and refusing for that reason. So these were the main arguments. And some of the stories were too tough to say, I had so many, but these were only a few. That's why I didn't put them in general categories, to say, I don't want to speak about it anymore. Yeah, so this is another category. This is now we're going to go to basically a bit the theoretical point. So this is Pat Griffin's. She has basically listed 6 categories of homophobic manifestations. And interestingly, these refusals that I just presented are also kind of linked to these homophobic manifestations in sport, like silence, don't talk about it. Denial, saying, no, it's not true, it's not true. Apology, say, well, but you have these things. Then the promotion of a heterosexy image, I'm going to come to that. Attacks on lesbian, physical attacks, psychological attacks, or that you just prefer a male coach or prefer a male staff without a kind of giving a reason. So these are, in theory, these homophobic manifestations. Now, in terms of heteronormativity and social cultural ideals. Now, when you look at these objects, what sex, what gender do those objects have in your head? Male, female, male, typically male, female. Is something kind of happening? What are associations that we do very quickly in our heads? What about these objects? Football, baseball, rugby, netball, cricket. Male or female? It's interesting. It's happening quite fast sometimes in the heads. So the point here, it's like in terms of neutrality, this is all leather with air in it, or kind of gum. And we still attribute that this is kind of male and female because we do these attributions of sports somehow, depending on the social cultural context. And if we take now, for example, a sport, and we consider the diversity kind of aspect that could be in terms of gender, in terms of HIV positive people, in terms of lesbians, in terms of migration, in terms of whatever you want to have as diversity elements, it's always depending on the social cultural context, on this orange frame, which is crucial, what it does and what's the interaction between this field, and this intersectional approach is crucial. For example, volleyball in one setting, on the left in Switzerland, beach volleyball, it's about showing a lot of skin, it's very sexy, it's like, that's how it appears. And volleyball, this case is in Kenya, in Nairobi, where a team from a very rural area joined a tournament, and these girls were only able to join because they had these dresses, these green dresses that this was a project sponsored by Nike, that they were negotiating what parts of the body need to be covered in order for these girls to participate in volleyball. So one sport, depending on the social context, it looks very differently. So again, this orange frame, whatever we talk, it's quite key. But it also depends what kind of sport. For example, football, soccer, in one part of the world, let's say in the United States, is rather a female sport, a feminine sport, a girl sport. In Europe, for example, it's rather a male sport, or in Africa. And this again triggers different associations in society. In terms of social cultural barriers and these ideals of femininity and masculinity, it's also, if you do not conform to these norms, sometimes there is a safety concern. Depending on your context, it can be really harmful, even violent, or very subtle, depending the sanctions. And these ideals, when I'm asking you, what is, the ideal of being a real boy, a real man? Now we're talking cliche and stereotypes. So what comes to your mind? How does a man and a boy needs to be? So thinking about being tough, being rough, being strong, being muscular, being self-confident, etc. Now about femininity. What are attributes? What are adjectives of being a real girl or a real woman? Now we are in the stereotype category strongly. So we have adjectives like soft, weak, beautiful, passive, elegant, and I put also obedient and submissive. This is from research I did in Zambia, where number one attribute of femininity was obedient and number two was submissive. And if you go there and want to promote football, for example, for women, this is going to be complicated because, sorry, what I just wanted to add here, when we say now this is in Zambia, this is in Africa somewhere, no, it's not. If we go to the supermarket, if you go to the where the soaps and things are, I always go there in every supermarket. I take pictures. In every country in the world, you can get these pink editions with the princess, with the dancer, being passive, being soft, being pretty. And you have the blue stuff. You have the pirate, you have the active one. Here, the pirate with the football. I don't know exactly the connection there, but it's really kind of these images that are corroborated over and over and reconstructed again. And when I'm asking you now, what does it mean to be a successful sportwoman in whatever sport? What adjectives or attribute of being a successful sportwoman? If I'm soft and weak and beautiful and passive, I'm not going to be successful. And attributes of a successful sportwoman is basically strong, ambitious, self-confident, powerful. And this is basically the same that we just enumerated for being a real boy or a real man. And this is leading to the contradiction between being a woman and being a sportswoman. And depending again on the social cultural context, it has stronger consequences or consequences that are okay or less stronger consequences. This leads also to reactions. This is what I meant by promoting a heterosexy image. That here we have the example of a Russian ice hockey goalkeeper from the Russian team. And in her private life, she is modeling, and she's also modeling with less clothes on. And one point is also that she shows that she can be playing ice hockey and be beautiful. And for the World Championship 2011 in Germany, there were German players being on the front side of the Playboy magazine. And in the interview, the motivation, they say, we want to prove that football players can be beautiful. Plus, they said, we want to prove that not all football players are lesbians. And this would then also, basically they say, lesbian cannot be beautiful in the same sentence, trying to get out of this that everybody suspects that footballers are lesbians. So this is then quite homophobic again, by trying to be as feminine as possible, then to say that lesbians cannot be pretty and beautiful. So there are other sports stars trying to do this as well. So we have the boxer Regina Halmich, the German ones, and that's Lisa Zimmermann, she's a freestyler, or the biathlete athlete Miriam Gössner. They all chose, they are top athletes, gold medal winning at Olympic Games for Lisa Zimmermann and Miriam Gössner. And they chose to show their femininity as well on the Playboy cover magazine. Now, in terms of trespassing norms and homophobia. So if these social cultural norms are not observed, and again, depending on the context, if you are in Russia, in Switzerland, in Brazil, it's different, risks and sanctions can follow out of that. So usually the stereotypes, like in so-called male sports, like ice hockey, rugby, depending on the context, active men symbolize heterosexuality and masculinity. So a real guy, a real man, it's totally okay to be good at sports. Active women, on the other hand, symbolize homosexuality and unfemininity. And if active women in these sports are lesbian, it's not a surprise. It's even almost expected. And this leads basically to the fact that homosexual athletes in general, both male and female, as well as heterosexual female athletes, because they do not observe these things of being feminine, maybe for a boxer not to bleed or not to sweat in public, things like this. They disturb the traditional system, they trespass these norms, and sometimes they put themselves at risk as well. So to put that in an overview, we have these patriarchal and traditional society structures, and in elite sport, this is still quite existing. Then we have this kind of compulsory heterosexuality, which is called heteronormativity as well. And this assures a certain convention, continuity. Everyone knows, you know, how does a man behave, how does a woman behave, etc. Who does he love, who does she love? This is kind of a control mechanism as well by society. So if Ramos is after a game kissing his wife, no one cares, no one bothers. But if Abby Wambach goes and kisses her partner, wow, this is like, wow, you know, it's like this control convention is basically, it's being shaken. It's basically homosexuality disturbs these well-protected gender norms and creates uncertainty, sometimes fears, this loss of control. What's now? You know, I thought men would, we have all this disturbed, and this often leads to homophobia, this irrational fear against homosexuality or homosexual people in general. We have also transphobia, not only homophobia, and all that, of course, is meant there as well. It's often out of a fear, which is totally irrational. Just to remind in terms of homophobia, still today, worldwide. So we have this chart that blue, it's legal and equal, the rights of homosexual people. The orange, it's legal but not equal. Red, it's illegal, so mean going to prison. brown, it's illegal, death penalty. And where we have the stripes, that's where male homosexuality and female homosexuality is not treated the same way. Usually, male homosexuality, it's punished more severely than the female one in these countries. Then the theory on heroism and role modeling. So we have talked about some stereotypes already in terms of being male, being female. Now, attributes of a hero, if you think of a national hero, kind of bravery, courage, muscular strength, etc. The heroine, on the other side, it's more like the motherhood, being kind, being caring, being having high moral standards, etc. So this is basically what we just saw before, according to these stereotypes about strong, powerful, and here obedient, soft, weak, passive. This is basically in line, but this leads basically to the consequence out of it that female elite athletes setting world records through strength and aggression may not automatically get the heroic status, because the heroine, it's not the translation of the hero, because it's with completely different attributes behind. And this is sometimes a problem, that if you have high performing, excellent, excelling sports stars, female ones, they are not automatically everyone's darling and featured and on the front magazine. If they are not good looking in terms of the ideal femininity images, they will not get the expensive contracts. They will not get the promotion video like others do. Nevertheless, role models are there and they are needed. So we have for South Korea, for Pyeongchang, for the Olympic Games, there was a LGBTI team of 14 members. On the left here, the snowboarder, it's Simona Meier. She's also in our book. She's a Swiss athlete. And here we have also Gus Kenworthy, a US athlete, and Irene Wust from the Netherlands. So these are role models, and they agree to be visible and to be really to be picked as well as role models. There is a lot on role modeling in terms of theories. I just want to mention two. They are built one on each other. The first one is based on Bandura, Albert Bandura. It's the model observer similarity. This says basically that the bigger or the higher the similarity degree between an observer and a role model, the more likely the observer is going to basically emulate the behavior of a role model. So the similarity thesis says that if the more similar someone is, the more likely that this person is going to be picked as role model. And building on Bandura's theory, Lockwood and Kunda said there are two aspects in addition to the similarity that are crucial. One is attainability and two is relevance. These people need to be attainable and relevant. Attainable means, that's why we also made the book. For Swiss people, Swiss role models are attainable because they are from Bern, from Zurich, from Basel. They grew up where we grew up, so they are attainable. And relevant means, for example, the sport. If someone is doing my sport, this is more relevant than if I'm let's say, if I'm a football player, it's more relevant for me, someone who plays football and not a ballet dancer. Or again, with international focus for a girl in Zambia, if a Swiss male ski star is coming as a role model, and these children have never seen snow in their life, even though this is not a good match to be a potential role model, because it's not attainable, it's not relevant, and there is almost zero similarity. So that's basically the theory behind. And this theory has been backed up by the Outsport study 2019. So it's a totally fresh study, if we can say that, from the German Sport University in Cologne. They had a huge sample of more than 5,500 people out of 31 European countries. And the research question was basically, what are possible measures against homophobia and transphobia in sport? And they asked this to all these people. And one of the results, they have, of course, many results. One result was mainly well-known top athletes who are open about their sexuality and or gender identity are crucial as role model. So the need for the well-known ones to be open was identified as one strong measure. So that's why we wanted to give access to different role models, different ages, different sports in Switzerland, in the German-speaking part of Switzerland, to be kind of attainable, so that we have, if we have public lecture sessions, that we can invite these women to come, and maybe young women can meet them and talk personally. And this is quite strong. So out of these, we have some examples, and we're gonna to close, basically listen to a second story out of the book, to a second portrait, and this time it's the fastest marathon runner in Switzerland, the record holder Meier Neuenschwander, and I pass the ball to Jeannine.
Thank you, Marianne. Yeah, Meier Neuenschwander, as you said, she holds the national record in marathon. She is 40 years old now today, and she's still running, and her plan was to qualify for the Olympics in Tokyo. And well, we all know that this year this is not going to happen. So she doesn't know how to continue, how to go on. When I talk about her, I want to focus on her process being part of the book. That was not an easy process for her. From the beginning to the end. Meier, she lives with her wife and her 2 sons in a small village not far away from the Swiss capital called Bern. And Meier, as a person, I would say she is a shy person. And for sure, she is not the person who really loves to talk about herself. And for sure, she doesn't like to talk about private stuff in public. And Meier was out in her club a long time ago. She was out in her family. She was out with her friends. But in public, as a runner, as the best marathon runner in Switzerland, she never really talked about being a mom, for example, or being in a lesbian relationship. So when I called her to ask if she wants to be part of the book, and to be honest, I postponed this call for weeks. I was really nervous because I had no clue how she's going to react to my call. And well, she listened carefully because she is a humble and nice person. But she told me that she had to think over. She had to think about if she wants to be part of the book. First of all, she wanted to be known as the best marathon runner Switzerland has. As Marianne told you before, she didn't want to be reduced to the lesbian runner. She wanted to be remembered as the best runner, not the best lesbian runner. That was the first thing she had to think about if she wants to really to come out. And the second was she wanted to know who else is portrayed in the book, because she didn't want to be the only kind of famous athlete, and she didn't want to be the only one being spotlight. So Meier, after several nights thinking over, Meier was finally in. The interview took part, the text was written, and the closer it came to the publication of the book, the more nervous she got. Now she was nervous, not me anymore, because now her story, that means talking about her lesbianism, her wife, her sons, was now written down on real paper in a real book, and her story will be there forever. She can't take it back. That was a huge step. And being part of a book, being in a book is one thing. And of course, a book is public. It is very public. But to be honest, it's still a bubble. It's still only a book. But what happened with our book, also, and thank to God for COVID-19 in this case, the book got so much attention. The world of sports was standing still. The newspapers were empty. in the sports department. The journalists didn't know what to talk about and read about. So we and our book jumped in. We filled the newspapers, and we did because of COVID-19. If there wasn't no COVID-19, football, soccer, ice hockey would have covered the newspaper, not a book about lesbian sport athletes. So I would say, and Marianne, you can correct me, almost every relevant newspaper in Switzerland, every radio station in Switzerland talked about the book. So in the case of Meier, being in a book is, as I said, one thing, but the other thing was she now was in public, in the newspaper, on the radio station. And this was one step more. So the entire process of being part of the book and the process of the release of the book forced her enormously to deal with herself, because she almost couldn't handle not to know what the reaction would be. And this process was not easy for her. But most important, today we can say she doesn't regret to be part of the book, and I think she can be proud to be a role model.
Thank you very much, Jeannine. And it's also very important that people like Maya Neuenschwandel, she is now working for Swiss Olympic. So she is a staff, official staff, and with her mindset and her activism. And she's now just founded a new project, which is called Women in Elite Sports. And she's the leader of the project. And these are things, it's so important that she also is active in that, and really, really impressive. Thank you very much, Jeannine, for bringing a face and a voice basically to Maya Neuenschwandel, a real role model. Now this would be basically like the end of our presenting part. We have this quiz now. I don't know exactly if we should just go on, and it's not a long quiz. It's gonna just take a few minutes. If we just add that on. So I got the thumb from Alice.
Yeah, I can also. Yes, sure, please.
Thank you. And the quiz, if you have a piece of paper somewhere and a pen, or just a pencil, something, or maybe you just want to do it in your head, it's also possible. You can just grab it. Maybe I just give you a few seconds to grab a pen and the paper. And the thing is on prejudice that how we associate immediately things, and how we what we have in our kind of minds. And the quiz is basically focusing on the sports that we have in our book. So here I enumerated 14 different sports. We have even more in the book. So people and athletes in these sports. And now we would like you to guess what woman does which sport. So we heard about already the bob and the running. So, but we have more athletes and more sports. And so this is now the quiz starting. So we have athlete A, and you just guess the sport that this athlete is doing. So not all this.
I know it.
Sorry?
I know it.
Can I ask something? I don't know. Can I ask what is floorball?
Yes, floorball is unihockey. Okay. It's the small white ball with the holes, and it's a kind of a hockey, but it's indoor with the plastic ball with the holes in it. I don't know what is it in French.
I don't even know. Okay, I don't know if they're playing this, but maybe.
It's very popular in Switzerland, in Sweden, in Finland, Czech Republic.
It's not a sport really in France, but it's the Nordic countries a lot more.
Yeah. In Switzerland as well, it's very popular. Floorball. It's we call it in Switzerland, we call it unihockey.
Okay, yeah. I have to try it. Okay.
Yeah. We also played a lot at schools, in Swiss schools. It's very popular. Yeah. Okay. So you can guess A, and then you write the number that you guess for athlete A. Okay, so we have the second athlete, athlete B. So what is her sport? Is it snowboarding? Is she dancing ballet? Is she a cyclist? And it's just interesting. What are you watching? Are you watching her arms, her fingers, the face? How do we do these attributions? Are you checking what she's wearing? Okay, so you add B and the number. Then we have the next athlete. So all these athletes, these pictures are from the book. Now athlete C with the dog. Is she a handballer? Is she a judoka? Does she track and field? Okay, so we have the next athlete, athlete D. It's one of the most famous ones of the book, but this might be as very restricted to Switzerland, depending in what sport you are interested. You might know her. Is she a cyclist or a triathlete? Okay, then we have the next athlete, athlete E. And here you can also see the different generations, the different styles, the different backgrounds of women we chose, this variety that we tried to have in the book. Is she a kickboxer? And
I see footballers everywhere.
And now, last but not least, we have two athletes on the picture. Athletes F. So are they snowboarders, volleyballers, dancing ballet? Okay, that was the last one. So we have A, B, C, D, E, F. We have six portraits from the book. And now we will come to the solutions and you will be able to check if you're right. So, Jeannine, maybe you can also jump in and add something to the athletes if you want here. So this is Evelyn Lena, that's her name, and she is a kickboxer. Okay, she's a kickboxer. She's also a referee. She did also refereeing for men, and I think she's one. Our colleague Monica, who is a boxer herself, she did the interview and she was so impressed with what she did as volunteering, and also she had high-level international matches where she was the referee as well. And this is also a picture in the book where she's refereeing many years ago as well. Okay, who got that right? Someone? It's difficult, we know. Okay. Jeannine, you were right. Good. I'm happy that, that you remembered. Okay. Second athlete, athlete B. This is Ruth Meier. She is a teacher at high school, a sports teacher today, and she is a volleyball player.
Yes.
You got it. Well, great.
I got it.
Why did you, what were you, what did you think to guess that she's playing volleyball?
The body.
She's
the body,
tall and thin.
Tall and thin. Okay. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Just that.
Good.
And quite feminine.
Quite feminine. This is what I meant with the attributions. It's happening quite quickly that we do these attributes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Good. Okay. Then athlete C. Athlete C. Maybe Jeannine, you want to say something or?
Athlete C, she is in floorball, and I looked it up on Google Translate. Google Translate says it's a ballon de foot en français.
No.
No?
It's a Swiss game. It doesn't exist. this really the sport?
No.
Does it? I mean,
But it's not a
no.
Swiss game. I know
Kidding, but-
in Sweden, for example, they have professional leagues. Women in Sweden play totally professionally floorball, and it's I know it's in the Nordic countries. It's really big. It's really popular.
Okay, so
And,
at the next Euro Central Asian Lesbian Conference, we have to put this as the official sport so that everyone gets to know about it.
And her name is Tanya Ertürk, and interesting about her is that her dad, he's Turkish, so Muslim background, and her mom, she's Italian, so a Catholic background, and she came out in Sweden. That means she went to play pro in Sweden, and there she fell in love, and she realized that she loves women. So she came out abroad, came back and told her parents, and I'm not sure, Marianne, but I think they are fine.
Sorry, the parents.
Her daughter.
Yes,
The parents are fine with her daughter being a lesbian, right?
In this case, the daughter had prejudice. The daughter thought that the parents would not be able to take it well, and the parents took it well. So it's quite interesting as a story that she was surprised by the reactions of her parents. Yeah. It's interesting that it's basically both ways. Yeah, and she's a world champion. They won the world championship as a club. Yeah. Jeannine, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, she was the most valuable player, I think, in this world championship. Yes, I wanted to tell something that interesting about her story, but interesting for a lot of stories, that a lot of athletes had to go abroad first to come out. They weren't able to do it in Switzerland, in their environment they were used to. They went abroad and they got out and came back and told everybody, Mom, Dad, friends, I'm gay.
Right. Yeah, this is quite a common thing in many stories. Yeah. Okay, then athlete D. Oh, sorry, that was the solution. I did not show the solution. Athlete D, who knows her?
I have somebody in Facebook who pretends that.
Okay.
Sophie is saying that she knows her.
Can she on Facebook say which sport?
So Sophie, she will get the information in a few seconds because there is a delay between Facebook and
Sure.
and Zoom, but I hope so.
This athlete gave her coming out at 31 years, which is quite late in a sporting career, basically. She was a professional player in France. She's now a professional player in Germany, and she was captain of the national Swiss team for a long time.
I have Lara Dickerman.
Right, 100
Yes.
points.
Sophie, she's a football.
She's a football player. Excellent. Thank you. Great. So Lara Dickerman is I would say, the most famous Swiss football player, together with Ramona Bachmann, that she's still playing as for Chelsea. Lara Dickerman is playing in Wolfsburg, and she played for Lyon for many years. She won the Champions League with Lyon several times. She won it with Wolfsburg as well. So yeah, she is really. And there was a TV broadcast that giving her basically coming out on television officially, and this was also quite in the newspapers. And when the book came out, as Jeannine told, that most journalists were focusing on Meier Neuenschwander because she's famous, and on Lara Dickerman because she's so kind of, she talks very well. The two of them talk very well, give very good interviews. Good. So the next athlete E. Athlete E. Any guess? So athlete E, she is a cyclist. This is Barbara Ganz, and she was several times as a Swiss champion, and she's a quite a well-known cyclist. Yeah. Good. Jeannine, anything to add with Barbara?
No, nothing. Thank you.
Okay, good. And then where are we? E. Now F. So that's the last part of the quiz. These athletes, what sport? Who takes a guess? And what are you checking? The eyes, the arms, the legs,
The clothes.
the clothes. It's interesting. By the way, the one on the left, she's pregnant on this picture. We cannot really see it, but they had the baby, I think, last year, Jeannine.
Yes.
Yeah. So they are, any guess? They are ballet. Who said ballet? You did. Hey, good. You got to right. They are ballet dancer, professional ballet dancer. And this is also about stereotypes, that we really wanted to have ballet as a kind of a counterpart to football and boxing and handball, to this cliche, to have kind of, we also have another dancer who does a, I don't know, couple dance. Do you say that? Paartanz. I don't know how you say that. Tournament dance or something. Oh no.
No.
I cannot, just dancing like
Social
standard,
dance.
social
dance.
Yeah. She was a professional social dancer as well, which is also not attributed and typically basically gay. So
also,
the overview,
and here in Facebook, we also had Mariella Muller, who guessed the last one, the dancer one.
Oh, she did. Okay.
I
Great.
think that she's maybe cheating because she's also said that she was reading the book. That's the moment. So
good. So here for all of them, if you did the little notes, you can have the letters and the solutions, the sport disciplines. This is basically the overview. And maybe, I don't know if someone has everything right. I don't know. It's difficult. But it's just, yeah, just that we would like to show how many different women we have, and that it's, yeah, basically that was it. And to close, there is this quote I like very much. It's not a disgrace not to reach for the stars, but it's a disgrace not to have stars to reach for. So I think as a concluding part from our side, this is Doreen from Kenya. She was as a professional footballer in Germany, and she went back to Kenya, and she's now working with girls over there and doing football leagues. Okay, so I'm gonna exit the presentation here, and so that we can see each other. Oh, there is Corinne. Hey, there is Corinne Rufli, one of the authors, of the co-authors of the book. She is in the middle here. Maybe you want to add something to the. When did you join, Corinne?
So just for the people who are watching on Facebook, people are commenting on the speakers are, and some of us who register are on the Zoom session. So that's why they are seeing each other. And maybe, yes, Corinne, you want to have a word, who is also a co-author, and I quoted Corinne at the very beginning, thanking her for having helped us to get in contact also with Marianne and Jeannine.
Yeah, thank you to my co-authors. They're doing a great job. It's just fun to be a team of 5. So you can also share a little bit all the work that we have with the media at the moment. So, and it's always just great also to have many different talents, to be a diverse group of authors, and together we're just a very good team. And so it's so much fun now to go out and tell all those stories. So yeah, that's great.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks you again so much. Thank you to all of you. I'm not sure because I have this problem. I can't see the comments on Facebook, but I do not think we have any question there. There's been some discussion also on the Facebook Zoom session, comparing also the situation in different countries, and that's why thank you also for showing us examples from almost all over the world. I'm from France, where we are most concerned about having some top lesbian athletes coming out, and always kind of pushing for this. Because they are so few. And so maybe if there's, I want to maybe for you to say, how can we get the book if people don't live, can they get the book even if they don't live in Switzerland? Because I think although it's in German, there is also a lot of pictures in the book which are very nice. This is the first thing. And I had a question also, do you know if the book will be translated?
Corinne, I don't know, you are the closest to the publication house. She lives basically next to it. No, I just put the website in the Zoom group chat. Maybe this is, and maybe Corinne, you want to say something to the translation?
Yeah, we will put it also on the Facebook comments. Fine, okay.
Well, yeah, with those translations, it's very difficult because they cost a lot of money to do that. You know, you need a publishing house in a country, so you need those contacts, and it's not easy to do that. And in a way, I think for us it's important to be in the German speaking part also, because as Marianne said, you know, the role models have to be kind of close. So I think it's better when you start with your French as sport athletes. Yeah, but I guess on the other side, a book like this can also help in a country where, yeah, sporting lesbian role models are not really common or seen, that it gives them a motivation to search for your own lesbian sport athletes. So that could be a reason to do or to translate it in another language. But we have no real, we've not really started thinking about that actually.
Okay, thanks a lot. And
we have a question here in Facebook from Mariella Murler from Austria, and she's asking, did you know from the beginning how many athletes will participate to the book?
Jeannine, yeah.
No, we didn't know. As Marianne said in her presentation, we kind of knew what kind of athlete we want to ask. So we wanted to have a variety of sports, not only soccer player or not only floorball players. We wanted to have like dancers, ballet dancers, tennis players. We just want to have the variety of sports. And we knew that we wanted to have like a variety of age. So older lesbians, all former athletes and actual athletes still active. And we said that they have to have a certain level, being part of the national team, for example. So, but then we started with our network. So we are 5 authors having a network with athletes, and we just started actually to call them, and maybe one said, no, I'm not in, but I know somebody who maybe would, and this is how we started, and we ended up with 28.
Thanks. And I think that there is Veronica who wants to ask a question here.
Hi, I'm Swiss, so I'm particularly glad that you published this book over Swiss athletes. I'm Tesiner, also of Italian part of Switzerland. That's why I had a question. You said that you contacted the athletes through your, let's say, personal network. I assume that you don't have any athletes from the French-speaking part or the Italian-speaking part. Is that a question of network, or do you think it's more difficult for people in the French-speaking part and Italian-speaking part to come out as lesbians?
Maybe the thing was that how to say, we did not very systematically do that. It just started, we got together, the 5 of us, we all come from different sport backgrounds with different, and then we know people who know people, and then we got started, and we already had basically too many just looking with this quite informal network. And I think, and this is for me also a gap that I say, that's why I said it's Swiss German. It's Swiss German. It's not Swiss because we did not proactively look for the French speaking or Italian speaking. This would be a next step. It was just that we did that. All of us have other jobs, and we did that kind of next to it. And it took us 3 years from today to do that. So it was basically just, yeah, we also had to choose then, do we do 28 but shorter stories? Or should we do maybe 10 and longer stories? Should we, so we had all these discussions, and all of a sudden we already had basically too many, and we could have made a book with footballers or a book with handballers. I mean, but we wanted to have the range, and this is a weakness, I would say, that it's, how to say, it's Swiss German, it's too narrow, but at the same time we say it's Swiss German. You know, this is the spot. This is about attainability and relevance. This is really there, and I hope that, you know, maybe in France, in Italy, and whatever, that we can add that, or that we have, I don't know, a second edition, and that we would put more efforts into that. We tried to be as diverse as possible, but we could not, to have the age, to have the sports, to have the kind of all of that. It was then getting basically out of the scope. But in terms of language, in terms of so Italian and the French, we could have covered it theoretically, but it was just yeah, out of our scope, I would say. Yeah.
But Marianne, it was never.
And
it was never.
Veronica. Oh.
Johnny?
Sorry.
It was never our intention to not include the German or Italian part. At the end, it was just the ones we had. And we did actually ask, Jeannine, you did, right? You asked the tennis player, for example, from the French speaking part, and she did not answer. So we tried, and we had another one, and she did not want to be part. So
right, the skier, yeah, we had another one, and right, it was just that then it did not happen, and then yeah.
But Veronica, to answer your question from my side, I think finally it has to do also with network, because there is a reason why the French speaking tennis player didn't respond, probably because she didn't know me. She didn't know any of us. And all the other, some of them we didn't know them either, but there was a connection somehow. And for my part, I can say, I mean, I do speak a little Italian, I do speak a little bit French, but I could never do an interview so deep in one of those languages. Never. I couldn't. So there is the language gap, or in Switzerland we call it Röstigraben, which means it's just a gap between the culture, the languages.
Yeah. But I think as a team of 5 we could have handled the language. I'm convinced.
Just to precise, I didn't want to put in question your choice. It was just to see if it was as a question of context. Of course, I understand the network stuff, but I wondered if, since I live in France, and I know that in France it's such a difficult question to be out as an athlete. So I guess in this French-speaking part of Switzerland it's the same. And I know very well Italy, and I know that it's very difficult there too. I wondered if there was also a cultural gap, but it was not at all to put in question your choice, which I fully understand.
Can I ask you a question, Veronica?
Yes, sure.
You say in France, it's very hard to find lesbian athletes who are out. Corinne and I, we had an interview with a German journalist, and she said the same. In Germany, it's hardly possible that so many women would be visible in a book. How come? Why? I mean, you in France and Germany, your civil rights, they are better for lesbians and gay people than in Switzerland. We can't have kids. So why is it so much more difficult to be out as an athlete in Germany, in France, and obviously Italy?
I can't answer for Germany or for Italy a little bit, because I think Italy, it's the Catholic heritage is still there in some ways. But for France, I think it's really the way that the country deals with its minorities. So it's not only about lesbians, it's also about other minority, racial minorities, etc. So all the minorities are seen potentially as a threat for the unity, Republican unity, which is, you know, like the Graal in France. It's the tipping point of all the governmental, political, public rhetoric. So we are one nation, united. So there is no particularity, there is no minority. If you are a minority, you just shut up. I make it short, and I'm sure that Alice is going to publish very soon a book about all these issues, and she can explain this much better than me. But it's really a question of how the national identity was constructed in this country.
Thank you.
And it's again, Sylvia, I think that in Facebook, the conversation is going somehow in the same direction. Several people, Sophie and Mariella, are saying that it will be difficult to gather so many openly lesbian athletes if we want to do a French version or an Austrian version of the book.
I think, sorry. I think that one other reason why there are so few coming out in France is also this culture of separation between private and public, which is quite strong in France. So I agree to what Veronica said before, and it's true that we don't have one out footballer, for example, in France among women. But there is also this reason, I think, about separating private and public. And I think that it's not the same for example, in England. I don't know how it is in Switzerland, but it seems to be better in some regions. But it's very difficult. And what we have tried to do with Les Dégommeuses, which is our team with Veronica, Alice was there before also, and Yuri too. We had tried to propose something so that the costs for coming out would be less important for the women who would hesitate. So the idea was to propose a collective coming out in the press, for example. So we had, je sais pas comment on dit en anglais, une tribune. Aidez-moi les filles.
Open editorial, yeah.
Yeah, but it didn't work. So I think that maybe a book would be a better idea, because the timing is not the same, and we could work on them so that they would be more convinced to do this with us. So thanks a lot for the presentations and for everything.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Maybe we're gonna come to a close of the session, so that I always want to keep them. It's Facebook Live, so that people, when they see, it's not like 7 hours watching. They know it, they can watch it. But obviously, you can all put, even if you're watching this session in 1 year from now, please ask your question in comment, and I will be make sure that the authors of this great book get your question, and that we can keep the conversation going on. I'm sure we will have many other opportunities to tackle these very, very important issues. I want to thank you so much for both participants and really the speakers for giving us their time and putting up such a great presentation. So I say like goodbye to everyone, and hooray to Lesbian in Sport, and hooray to floorball too, which was my big discovery tonight.
Thank you so much for having us, and take care. And I'm looking forward to books from Italy, from France, from Austria. That would be great. That would be great. Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you. Bye. Thanks.